Good morning. Everybody doing okay today? All righty. So let's see. Excuse me. Go ahead and share my screen. We're gonna get ready and look back at where we left off on Monday. Hopefully everybody is doing well with their tests. Be sure to let me know if you have any questions or need anything. Excuse me.
I'll
Okay.
take my test later today. I just don't have it turned in yet.
That's okay. That's okay. Yeah. Just if you are finished with your test, go ahead and get it uploaded. If you need a little bit more time the rest of the day, that's fine. If you're going to be any later than today, just let me know when, when you plan on turning it in. I know several of you have been out and are catching up from being out, and that is just fine. All righty. So on Monday, we started our new unit dealing with polynomials. We have looked about multiplying a monomial by a polynomial. Excuse me. I took a sip of water a minute ago and it went down the wrong way, so I had a big coughing fit. So I'm still, hopefully we'll get over that quickly. So anyway, so we worked on multiplying and we said it's exactly the distributive property. When I have one term outside parentheses, I make sure to multiply it by each term inside parentheses. Excuse me. And then with lesson 61 and 62, we talked about how this was multiplying a binomial, which means a two-term polynomial. So a binomial times a binomial. And we talked about how there's a method that we do this. And I showed you guys about drawing the arrows, how when I draw my arrows, I start with the first term of my binomial. So I showed you guys how I guess I'm not sharing my picture, so it doesn't matter that I'm drawing here. Hang on a minute, let me share my screen. Excuse me. Let's see. Oh, share my screen. Okay. Now I can go back there. Nope, not there. Alrighty. So we talked about having, excuse me, our set method on being able to multiply our binomial by binomial. And then let me put up my participant screen so I can make sure if anybody gets knocked out, I can let you back in. And so remember we said that using FOIL, or first, outer, inner, last, is just a mnemonic, a way to help us remember that I'm taking the first term of my first binomial and multiplying it by each term of my second binomial. And then I multiply my second term of the first binomial by each term of my second binomial. So basically, I'm doing the distributive property with each term of my first binomial. But we named it FOIL for multiplying the first terms of each binomial, the outer terms of each binomial, the inner terms of each binomial, and then the last term. So that's what FOIL stands for: first, outer, inner, last. Okay. So by following that method, number one, I remember to multiply. I remember to multiply each term by each binomial. Then also by setting it up the way I have, I can see that now my two terms in the middle, the outer and the inner, are usually going to be like terms. And we know that when I have like terms, I can simplify by combining those like terms. So in this situation, I have 2x and negative x. When I add 2x plus a negative x, it's the same as 2x minus x, and I end up with x. So I do my FOIL, first, outer, inner, last. I combine my two middle terms by adding them together. And then I write my answer in simplified form. So my answer will always be first, my combined middle, and then last. And it's always going to go in that order. When I write a polynomial, I'm always going to write it in order of descending exponents. So like x squared would come first, and then my x term, because remember, that's going to be the same as x to the first. So I start with my variables, excuse me, and go descending variables, and then my constant, my number, is always last. Okay. So we worked on lesson 61. Excuse me. We went through that. Now what I want to do is, I didn't assign any homework on this section, right? We didn't have any homework on this. You just had your test.
Yes.
Am I remembering that correctly? Okay. So what I want to do is I want to go ahead and start out. We're going to start with activities 3 on page 136. So let's go ahead and start there. We are going to do the we're going to do the top 2 rows together. So you can do the top 2 rows in your book. And actually, just depending on time, we may do a little more than that. Well, let's just go ahead and start with the first one. Multiply 3 times 4x. That's going to give me 12x. And 3 times a positive 5 plus 15. This is just a monomial times a binomial. Just getting into the habit of multiplying one term by 2 terms. 6x times 2x. 6 times 2 is 12, and x times x is x squared. Then 6x times 3, it is positive, so I have a plus sign, and 6 times 3 is 18, and I've got my x. So 6x times 3 is 18x. Last row, 3 terms. 8x times 2x squared. 8 times 2 is 16, and x times x squared. Remember, when I multiply x times x squared, then I'm going to add my exponents.
X cubed.
X cubed, good. So 16x cubed, or x to the third. Then I multiply 8x times x, and 8x times x is going to be 8x squared. And then 8x times a negative 3. I know it's going to be a positive times a negative, so I'm going to have a negative answer. That's why I'm going to have a minus sign. 8 times 3 is 24, so that's 24x. Let's go ahead and do the next row together. 4 times 2x is 8x. 4 times a negative 1 is negative 4. So I have 8x minus 4. 3x times 5x, 15x squared. 3x times negative 2, positive times a negative. I have a negative answer, so negative 6x. And then the last one, 4x times 3x squared. 4 times 3 is 12. X times x squared, x cubed. 4x times 2x, positive. 4 times 2 is 8, and x times x is x squared. And then the last one, 4x times negative 1, is going to be a negative 4x. Okay? So now what I want you to do is I want you to finish up this section. You're fine to do it in your workbook. I want you to go ahead and finish up activities 3 right now in your workbook. When you are finished, give me a thumbs up.
All right, I've gone ahead and put your answers up on the screen so you can take a look and check your work, see if there's any of them that you missed, any of them that you want to ask about. And then we're going to get ready and move on to lesson 62. Like I said, in 61, we were doing the same process as 62. So I just figured, let's go ahead and learn FOIL to begin with. It's going to be easier just to move on from it. So lesson 62, just, sorry. Okay, so lesson 62, we're doing the same thing we did in 61. This is just the point where they teach it as FOIL, okay? So again, we talked about how the FOIL method is just first, outer, inner, last. And I guess I had forgotten to erase my work on this page. So let me do that real quick. Okay. So let's just go back through and practice with lesson 62. Classwork 1. Y'all know I like to set up, oh, that's way too big. FOIL, first, outer, inner, last. First is x times x, x squared. Outer is x times 2, so that's 2x.
Be sure you're paying close attention to when you're multiplying x times x and x times 2. Those are two totally different things, okay? Then I have my inner, which is 1 times x, and 1 times x is just x. And then last, 1 times 2 is 2. Remember, my middle terms are the ones I combine. So 2x and x is going to give me 3x. Remember that how I decide what my signs are between everything, I can see that everything here is positive. I don't have any negatives written, so I know I'm going to have x squared plus 3x plus 2. I know that my signs that go between each term are all going to be plus signs because every number I'm dealing with or every term I'm dealing with is positive. All right, I'm going to have to pay careful attention here because I see I've got some negatives. So again, FOIL. First is x times x, so that's x squared. Outer is x times -1. That's going to give me a negative x. Now I'll do inner, -1 times x again is a negative x. And then last, -1 times -1. A negative times a negative is a positive. So pay attention to your signs. -1 times -1 is a positive 1. Again, I'm combining these two middle terms. So I have negative x minus x, or you can say negative x plus a negative x. So that's going to give me a negative 2x. Okay. So again, my first term is positive, so that's x squared. My next term is negative, so it's going to be minus 2x. My last term is positive, so it will be plus 1. Okay, so when you're deciding, when you're putting your terms in order, when you're writing your answer, whether it's positive or whether it's plus or negative, minus, it depends on, is my next term positive or is it negative? Okay. So we looked at what happens when I multiply two positives. Everything was positive. When I multiply two negatives, notice that my first sign is a minus, my last sign is a plus. Now we're doing a positive and a negative. So start out with FOIL. 2x times x is 2x squared. 2x times -2, positive times a negative is a negative, and 2 times 2 is 4. So we have 4 at -4x. Now here I have plus 1 times x. So positive times a positive is a positive. 1 times x is x. My last terms, I have a positive 1 times a -2. Positive times a negative is a negative. 1 times 2 is 2. I'm going to combine my middle terms. Now I have a -4x plus x. Okay, so think about that's basically -4x plus 1x. -4 plus 1 is going to be a -3. Take the sign of the larger. Find the difference. So now that's going to be a -3x. So when I write my solution, I start out with 2x squared because it's positive. My next term will be minus 3x. My last term is minus 2. So if we look at this, notice multiplying two positives, everything was positive. Multiplying two negatives, my first term was negative, or my first sign was a negative, my second was a positive. Now this time I've ended up with two negatives. Okay, so there's a pattern there that we're going to be seeing, and we're going to actually learn more about that pattern when we go from multiplying to factoring, which is the equivalent of dividing a polynomial to make two binomials. Okay, so now let's go ahead and look at the classwork here. We're going to do the left column together, and then I'm going to have you do the right column in just a minute. So let's start by foiling. X times x is x squared. X times 3 is 3x. 2 times x is 2x. 2 times 3 is 6. Combine my middle terms by adding, and 3x plus 2x is 5x. Again, everything's going to be positive, so I have x squared plus 5x plus 6. Any questions? All right, let's take a look at the next one. All right, x times x, x squared. X times -2 is -2x. -3 times x is -3x. And -3 times -3, negative times a negative is a positive, and 3 times 2 is 6. Combining these middle terms, -2x minus 3x is going to be -5x. So now when I write my solution, x squared minus 5x plus 6. Is everybody comfortable with how I'm determining if I have a minus or a negative between my terms? Okay. The next one. 2x times x, 2x squared. 2x times -3. Positive times a negative is a negative. 2 times 3 is 6. So it's going to be 6x. 1 times x is x. Positive 1 times -3 is -3. Combine my middle terms. I have a -6x plus x. That's like having -6 plus 1. So that would be -5x. Take the sign of the larger and find the difference. I'm going to write my solution. So I have 2x squared minus 5x minus 3. Okay. So again, we're noticing that same pattern. I multiplied 2 positives. I have both positives in my solution. I multiplied 2 negatives. I have a negative first and then a positive. Now I multiplied a positive and a negative, so both of my terms are negative. So look at the next one. Now I already know if I'm paying attention to my pattern, I know that in my answer, both of the signs separating my terms will be negative. All right, 3x times x. 3x squared. 3x times -4, -12x. 2 times x is 2x. 2 times -4, -8. My like terms are -12x and 2x, so that will be a -10x. Combine my terms to write my solution. 3x squared minus 10x minus 8. Okay. I'm going to leave those up. You should have them written in your book. Remember, my whole point in doing this for you and doing this with you on Zoom, y'all know that this is the hard part about Zoom is I could say, turn on your cameras. I want to see you working. Show me your work. I could do that. I don't want to have to do that. Okay. I want to trust that you're going to follow along and do what you're supposed to be doing, because ultimately your grade is your responsibility. Okay. It's your responsibility to follow along as I'm doing the work. Is it fun? Is it the easiest to do? Absolutely not. I totally get it. But I also don't want you to have a year learning gap because of this is the situation that we're in. Okay. You need these skills for next year's geometry. You need these skills for Algebra 2 in 2 years, okay? So it is to your benefit to just deal with it, follow along, write these problems in your book, do the practice problems, because if you're not practicing with me and you're not doing this, then when you're doing it on your own, you have no clue what to do, all right? And that's my biggest fear about getting the next test back. I'm worried that people haven't been following along and haven't been doing the steps that I've done. So please, 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 if you haven't done it, it's never too late to start. Okay, start now. You should be writing everything that I'm writing on the screen should be written in your workbook. If you haven't been doing it, then I need you to start. Okay. All right, so you are going to work on the right-hand column on your own. When you finish, give me a thumbs up. When you finish, check your answers. If you have any questions, if you did not get that answer, look at your foil.
I'm almost done, but I got the wrong answer on the first one for the last one, but then I realized what
Okay. All right, good. I'm glad you realized that's the whole point is, if you look and see what you missed and look at why you missed it, that's part of learning. You've got to be able to recognize when you've made a mistake and start looking at, okay, why did you make that mistake? Then that helps you later when you are doing the same type of problem. You're able to think, hey, I've got to remember to pay close attention to this, whether it's dealing with signs.
I got wrong is because I added instead of multiplying.
Okay. So great. So it's the kind of thing where now each time you're going through, remember, hey, this is what I'm supposed to do. Okay. That's the whole point. You recognize your mistake, correct it, and then the next time you do it, you have less of a chance of making that same mistake. All right. Any questions on these? Anything that you're uncomfortable with? Anything you're having trouble with? What did I forget in my last one? On my last answer, I forgot my exponent. Okay. Any questions on that? All right. So now what we're going to do is the next section. Let's go ahead and turn over to page 139. 139. Again, this one I'm multiplying polynomials. Let me erase my work real quick. That's big. Okay, you can see my arrows again. I'm doing distributive property, but notice that now from each of my terms in the first polynomial, I just drew an arrow and I made sure to multiply by each term, okay? So one of the things that I've got to make sure to do when I do these is to have an efficient method, a method that works, but also keeps my work organized. Because remember, with FOIL, I would have to combine those middle two, the outer and inner are usually the same term, so I'm able to combine those. So once I've done this, again, I've got to combine like terms, okay? So what I want to do is I want to have a consistent method to work through these, that every single time I use the same process. Unfortunately, I don't have a fancy acronym to help me with this. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to list everything out. And so notice I did x times x squared first. So that will be x cubed. Then I have x times x. Since it is positive, I'm going to write a plus sign, and x times x is x squared. For my third term, x times a positive 2. So that will be plus 2x. Okay, those are my three solutions for multiplying the first term of my binomial times each term of my trinomial. Now I'm going to start with the second term, which is a positive 1, and multiply 1 times x squared. Because it is positive, I'm going to write a plus sign, and 1 times x squared is just x squared. Then I have that 1 and I multiply by x, and 1 times x is x. Again, it is positive, so I write a plus sign because it's a positive x. Now I have 1 times positive 2, so that is a positive 2. Now I have everything kind of written out. And again, I still need to check to look for like terms that can be combined. So I start with my x cubed. I don't have any other x cubes. I look at x squared. Notice I have an x squared here, and I have plus x squared here. So I have x squared plus x squared. So remember I said I've got my x cubed. There's nothing to add to it. So now I'm combining x squared plus x squared. I want you to think about this for a minute. If I have x squared plus x squared, this is the same as saying 2 times x squared, right? So that's going to be 2x squared. Be super careful, because adding variables with exponents is not the same as multiplying variables with exponents. Okay, so x squared plus x squared is not x to the fourth. That would be x squared times x squared. When I add x squared plus x squared, that's the same as adding 1x squared plus 1x squared, or multiplying 2 times x squared. So now x squared plus x squared is 2x squared. I move on to my next term, which is a positive 2x, and I have a positive x. So 2x plus x is 3x. And then at the end, I have a 2. I have no other things to combine. So notice my first and last terms are going to be the first and last terms in my solution, usually. Okay, if it follows the same pattern, my x cubed or my cubed term will be first, my constant is last. It'll be the ones in the middle that I've got to look for like terms to combine. Okay. Let's look at the next one. I have x times x squared. So remember, this is x times x squared. So think about this is the same if I have x times x squared. Remember, my exponent of x is just x to the first, so that means I have x. I take my power of 1 and I add it to 2, so that's going to be x cubed. This is when I am multiplying, I add my exponents. So now that is x cubed. Excuse me. X times a negative 2x. Positive times a negative is a negative, so I know I have a minus sign next. And x times 2x is 2x squared. Then I'm multiplying x times a positive 3. So that's going to be a positive 3x. Everybody good so far? Everybody feel comfortable knowing what sign to put in between your terms? All right, next term, positive 1 times x squared is going to be a positive x squared. 1 times negative 2x is going to be negative 2x. And positive 1 times positive 3 plus 3. I'm going to erase this over here so this does, not that. Make my eraser smaller. Okay. So again, I'm looking for my like terms. I can see I have negative 2x squared plus x squared. I can see I have a positive 3x minus 2x. So notice I'm putting boxes around my like terms and circles around the other like terms. That's just a visual reminder for me. Again, my first term x cubed doesn't have anything to combine with. Now I have negative 2x squared minus x squared. So negative 2 minus 1 basically is going to be negative 3x squared. Remember, I just put my coefficients. I use the operation for those, but then keep the variable and the exponent the same. Now I have a positive 3x and a negative 2x. So 3 minus 2 is 1. It is positive, so I'm going to have plus x. Since positive 3 minus 2 is a positive 1, then my sign before it is going to be a plus sign. So plus x. And then again, my 3 at the end is positive, so I have plus 3. Okay. Let's go ahead and look at the last one.
Are you combining them?
Pardon?
Like, shouldn't negative 3x squared just be x squared? Because a negative plus the positive.
I wrote that wrong, didn't I? When I circled, I messed up and made that look like I thought that was a negative because of my circle. It intersected right here with my plus sign. You're exactly right. That's why I have negative 2 minus 1. It should be negative 2 plus 1. So thank you for telling me about that. So I need to fix those right there. I guess make sure that if you're circling or underlining terms, you're not messing up your signs like I just did. So that's negative 2x squared plus x. So negative 2 plus 1, again, take the sign of the larger, find the difference. So that's negative 1. So that's going to be negative x squared. Thank you, Zoe. So x cubed minus x squared plus x plus 3. Okay, so if you followed along and made the same mistake I did, just because you followed me, fix that. And then the last one, I'll try to make sure I separate far enough and don't mess up this one. 2x times x squared is going to be 2x cubed. 2x times 3x, 2 times 3 is 6, x times x is x squared. It is positive, so I have plus 6x squared. 2x times a negative 3. Positive times a negative is a negative.
Negative
2 times,
6x.
huh?
Negative 6x.
Negative 6x, good. So now we're working with our second term. Negative 1 times positive x squared will give me negative x squared. Negative 1 times 3x is negative 3x. And negative 1 times a negative 3, negative times a negative is a positive, so that will be plus 3. Okay. Remember, my first term and last terms are going to stay, so I'm going to go ahead and start with 2x cubed. Now I've got plus 6x squared minus x squared. So a positive 6 minus 1 is going to be a positive 5. Keep my variable in my exponent. So I have 5x squared. Now I have a negative 6x minus 3x. Negative 6 minus 3 is negative 9x. And then my last term is just my constant, so it's plus 3. And remember, we talked about a little while ago, when I name my polynomials, I go in variable order of exponents from least to greatest. So that's why I have my x cubed, then my x squared, and then x, and then I have my constant, which has no variable. So whenever I'm putting them in order, that's going to be how I write the solution. I don't want to mix them up and jumble them up and put them out of order. Okay. All right. So we're going to go ahead and practice a little bit more on the right-hand side, and then I'm going to have you do the left-hand side. So let me get these marked out. Okay, so actually what we're going to do is we're going to do the right-hand column together, because I want to be able to do that last one where I have 3 terms times 3 terms. I have a trinomial times a trinomial. All right, so here we go. Let me fix my pen, fix the width. Okay. 2x times x squared, 2x cubed. 2x times 2x is plus 4x squared. 2x times negative 5 minus 10x. Now we're going for the next ones. 1 times x squared is a positive x squared. 1 times 2x is a positive 2x. And 1 times a negative 5 is going to be negative 5. I want to combine my like terms. So I know I've got positive 4x squared plus x squared, and then negative 10x plus 2x. So I want you to go ahead and combine those and write your solution. And then check it. 2x cubed plus 5x squared minus 8x minus 5. Check your signs. Did you put your signs correctly between the terms? Okay, let's do the next one. 2x times x squared. 2x cubed is 8x squared, and it's positive, so plus 8x squared. 2x times negative 5 is negative 10x. Next term, 7 times x squared is 7x squared. It is positive, so I have a plus sign. 7 times 4x. 7 times 4 is 28, and it's positive, so plus 28x. 7 times negative 5 is negative 35. I'm going to combine 8x squared plus 7x squared, and I have negative 10x plus 28x. Write your solution, and then we're going to check our signs. All right, you should have ended up with 2x cubed plus 15x squared plus 18x minus 35. Check your signs. How did you do? Okay, the next one. 2x times x squared, 2x cubed, 2x times 3x, positive 6x squared, 2x times negative 5, again, negative 10x. Negative 1 times x squared is negative x squared. Negative 1 times 3x is negative 3x. Negative 1 times negative 5 is plus 25. Chad?
It's break time.
Yeah, as soon as we finish this problem, we'll take our break, okay? So go ahead, combine your like terms. Write your solution. 2x cubed plus 5x squared minus 13x. Did I do the wrong problem? Oh, I did 5 times 1 was 25. Nobody told me my mistake. 5 times 1 is 5. I was multiplying something else. Plus 5. All right, check your answer. Make sure your signs are correct. And we'll take a 5-minute break. When we come back, we will multiply the trinomial by the trinomial. All righty, we'll get ready and come on back. If you will either give me a thumbs up or turn your camera on real quick so I can make sure that everybody is back. Awesome. Thanks, guys. Okay, so let's go ahead and we are going to be working with multiplying a trinomial times a trinomial. Again, like we looked at with multiplying a binomial times a trinomial, we had to kind of be organized in how we wrote everything out so we can look to see what needs to be combined. Obviously, this time we're going to have even more products to write out after we have multiplied. So we may not have room to write everything side by side. So one of the things that you can do is you can stack them. You can write them stacked. I'm gonna make a bigger white area to work with right here. I'll just go ahead and wipe out my flip-flops so I can write. Okay. So now what I'm gonna do is I start again with my first term, x squared, and I multiply by x squared. And x squared times x squared. Remember, this is where I add my exponents. So I'm going to end up with x to the 4th. Then x squared times 4x will be 4x cubed. And then x squared times 1 is going to be x squared. So in this situation, I'm going to stack them from top to bottom, and I'm just going to make 3 columns, okay? But what I have to make sure of is positives and negatives, because when I start combining like terms, I've got to look and see which ones are positive, which ones are negative, okay? So I'm going to start with my second term, which is negative 2x times x squared. Negative times a positive is a negative, and I know that's going to be negative 2x cubed. Negative 2x times a positive 4x will be negative 8x squared. Negative 2x times a positive 1 is negative 2x. Okay, so now we've multiplied 2 of our terms of our first trinomial. Now we're going to go with the third one, and I've got negative 5 times x squared will be negative 5x squared. Negative 5 times 4x will be negative 20x. And negative 5 times a positive 1 is negative 5. Now, again, like we looked at earlier, usually our first and last terms are not going to have any common things. So that x to the 4th and negative 5, I know x to the 4th will be my first term, minus 5 will be my last term. So now I'm going to look at combining like terms. Okay, so we just said, I know x to the 4th will be my first term. So x to the 4th. Now what I've got to look at is I'm going to start with 4x cubed. I'm looking for other terms that have x cubed. And I see negative 2x cubed. So I'm going to combine those two. And I have 4x cubed minus 2x cubed. 4 minus 2 is a positive 2, so I'm going to have plus 2x cubed. If I combine anything and you're not sure what I did or why I did it, please let me know. Okay. All right. Then my next one, I have x squared. So I'm looking for my other x squared terms. Notice this time I have 3 terms that are x squareds. Okay, so I start with my first one, and I have x squared minus 8x squared. So I go from this one to this one, and then this one to this one. So x squared minus 8x squared is going to give me a negative 7x squared. But now that I've got negative 7x squared, I subtract 5x squared. And I know that negative 7x squared minus 5x squared is negative 12x squared. So I have minus 12x squared. Okay, so notice how I did my columns. I started with the one on the left and I started with x squared. Then I combined it with negative 8x squared. Then I combined that with negative 5x squared. Then I ended up with negative 12x squared. Okay, so now I've got negative 2x minus 20x. Negative 2 minus 20 is negative 22. And I keep my x with it. And then my last term is negative 5. Okay, so that one I had to have a more organized method to be able to keep everything and make sure I combine the proper terms, make sure I have everything listed out, make sure I don't forget to multiply something. Okay, so now what I want you to do is I want you to work the left-hand side. You can see that you've got 1, 2, 3, where you're going to multiply a binomial times a trinomial. And then the last one, you have 2 trinomials. So use that method that we looked at to be able to organize your work. So go ahead and start on those. As you start finishing, or when you're finished, check your answers, look at your signs. If there's anything that you missed that you can't figure out why you missed it, let me know and we can work through the problem. Give you a few more minutes to check. All right, any questions, or is anybody not ready to move on? I'm sorry?
That was my brother walking by. I had trouble with combining.
On which one? On all of them or
I
just?
did all the problems. It's just I couldn't figure out what I was supposed to combine.
Okay, so remember when we're combining, we're looking for like variables. So when we look at these examples that we did a minute ago, remember I'm looking for the ones that have the same variable with the same exponent. So like this one was 4x squared, it had x squared. So to figure out which one I combine it with, it's going to be the one that also has x squared. Okay, or if it's just an x by itself, those are the ones I combine. When I'm combining like terms, it has to be the same variable with the same exponent. Okay, same variable with same exponent. So any questions on the left-hand side, any of these you would like me to work?
On the last one,
Uh-huh.
doesn't the cubed ones cancel?
Okay, so let's look at that. All right. So we started out and we have x squared times x squared is x to the fourth. X squared times negative x is going to be negative x cubed. And then x squared, negative 3x squared. 2x and x squared is 2x squared. I'm sorry, cubed. And then 2x and negative x is going to be a negative 2x squared. Wait a minute, where did I go? X squared, x to the fourth. X squared, negative x is negative x cubed. X squared, negative 3x squared. Then I have 2x times x squared is going to be 2x squared. No, 2x cubed, sorry. 2x times negative x is negative 2x squared. And then 2x and negative 3 is going to be negative 6x. Then 1 times x squared is x squared. 1 times negative x is negative x. And then 1 times negative 3 is negative 3. Now I start looking for my like terms to combine. Negative x cubed and 2x cubed, that should be a positive. I think I just forgot to write my plus sign. So that should be a positive x cubed. So we have x to the fourth stays. Then negative x cubed plus 2x cubed is going to be a plus x cubed. And then negative 3x squared minus 2x squared plus x squared. So negative 3x squared minus 2x squared is negative 5x squared. Negative 5x squared plus x squared is negative 4x squared. Then we have a negative 6 and negative 6x and a negative x is negative 7x. And then we have that negative 3 at the end. So I just messed up my sign on that one. Okay, so on that x cubed, I had a negative x cubed plus 2x cubed. So they didn't cancel out, but it was positive, not negative. Any other questions on any of these on the left-hand side? The main thing is paying close attention to your terms and close attention to combining like terms. When you combine them, are they negative? Are they positive? What do you do? All right, the last thing that we are going to look at today is going to be lesson 64, dealing with special products. So it says there are 3 instances when multiplying 2 binomials forms a pattern that becomes a shortcut to arriving at the solution. If you memorize these special products now, you will save much time later on, okay? So basically what it's saying is that you can always use FOIL, or you can always use your method to be able to get to your final answer. But there are faster ways if you can recognize patterns of multiplying binomials. If you learn the pattern to it, then you don't have to write out step by step by step by step. Okay, so these are just kind of some shortcut ways. Now it's the kind of thing like the direction saying, like I say, if you learn it, you're going to be able to do it faster. You can still use the slower other method. It's totally up to you. Okay, so in this situation, it says, hey, do you notice that when I have a plus b times a plus b, okay, then it ends up being, I have a times a is a squared, a times b is ab, b times a is ba, and b times b is b squared, okay? Now remember, these two right here are actually the same terms because a times b is the same as b times a. Remember, the commutative property tells me it does not matter which order I multiply in, okay? So in this situation, this pattern here is our simplified pattern because a times b and b times a are the same thing. So that's like saying 2 times a times b. So that's just 2ab, okay? So if I have both plus signs, then I can use the pattern of a squared plus 2 times a times b plus b squared to simplify. Instead of writing out FOIL, combining the middle terms, this is just a shortcut way. If you don't want to do that, that's fine. You can use the long way. Okay, and it says this is the formula for finding the square of a binomial. So notice now they said if I have a times b, if I have a plus b times a plus b, this is the same as saying a plus b squared because I'm multiplying a plus b by itself. I have an exponent of 2. So here is my pattern. Likewise, if I have the same binomial with minus signs, I have this pattern. So basically I have a plus b squared. A plus b squared is going to equal a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. If I have a minus b squared, it's going to follow the similar pattern except for my second sign, or my first sign is going to be a negative. So it'll be a squared minus 2ab plus b squared. Okay, so these are multiplying when I have 2 positives. This is multiplying when I have 2 negatives. Now, when I have a positive and a negative, okay? When one is positive and one is negative, and I multiply a times a, I get a squared. A times negative b is negative ab. B times a is positive ba, and positive b times negative b is negative b squared. Now, this is where I look at these terms in the middle. Remember, we just said that AB is equal to BA because it does not matter what order I multiply in. So if these two are the same terms and one is negative and one is positive, then that would be like saying negative 3 plus 3. Negative 3 plus 3 is 0. So negative AB plus BA is going to equal 0. So those terms do cancel each other out. Because if I have a negative plus the positive form, that's going to equal 0. So if those two cancel out, all I have left are a squared minus b squared. So that's what they're showing us here. that if I see two binomials, one is positive, one is negative, I can automatically look at that and say a plus b times a minus b is going to be equal a squared minus b squared. I don't have to take the time to FOIL it out. I can just use my pattern and write my answer. So we're going to practice with these a little bit. It says this formula is also known as the difference of two squares due to the format of the answer. So my answer is called the difference because it's a subtraction of two squares, a squared and b squared. Okay, the difference of two squares. So let's go ahead and take a look. All right, so we're going to multiply using the special formulas. So do you remember a minute ago, we just said that if I have, this is like x plus 2 times x plus 2, right? And we just said the formula that follows a plus b times a plus b is a squared plus ba plus ab plus b squared. So this right here becomes 2ab. Okay, so in this situation, x is a and 2 is b. So if I have a squared, that's going to be x squared plus 2ab, a times b here is going to be 2x, and I multiply that, so 2 times 2x, because I've got 2ab, plus b squared. B squared is 2 squared. So now I'm going to simplify that, and I've got x squared plus 4x plus 4. Now again, you can still FOIL it if you're having trouble with the patterns. Again, if I FOILed it, I'm going to have x times x is x squared. X times 2 is 2x. 2 times x is 2x, and 2 times 2 is 4. Combine my middle terms, that's 4x, and I end up with x squared plus 4x plus 4. Either way, I'm going to end up with the same answer. I can either use FOIL or I can memorize my patterns to where a plus b times a plus b is a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. Okay, all you're doing is plugging in your values for a and b and writing your pattern. But you have to remember this middle one, you have to multiply it by 2. All right, so let's go ahead and look at this again. So remember, if this is a and this is b, and I'm going a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. Okay, so if a squared is going to be 2x times 2x. Okay, so 2x times 2x is 4x squared. So basically what I've done is I've said a is 2x, so I'm squaring that. Now I have 2 times a is x, b is 5. So now I have 2 times x times 5. That's going to be plus 10x. And then I have plus 5 squared. 5 squared is 25. Chad?
Can you go over the last problem and this problem? I wasn't really understanding it that well.
Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at this one. What I just did is I said, if I know that my pattern is a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. Are you good with that so far? They told me this is my pattern. So now what I'm doing is I'm saying if 2x is what a is, I'm plugging in 2x for a. Okay. Oops, I messed up on that middle term. I didn't write 2x in my parentheses. Hang on. So let me fix that real quick. I just realized I only wrote x instead of 2x. So that's going to change my middle term. That made all that go away. I was worried about that. Let me just do this.
How come we just don't use the FOIL method instead of doing all this?
You can. So that's what they're saying, is that if you memorize special patterns, there are some people that memorize the special patterns and then they can just look at the problem and give you the answer immediately. So that's why this is another alternative. You can always use your fallback. You can always go the long route, but the more practiced you get with it, if you know your patterns, then you can just do your answers without having to list it out. I'm just trying to show you why they get to that answer, okay? But if you don't see the patterns and you have trouble with it, you just FOIL it. That's your backup, okay? So we just said I'm plugging in 2x is a, so I've plugged that in here. So I've said a squared plus 2 times a times b. A is 2x, b is 5. So 2 times 2x is 4x, and 4x times 5 is 20x. And then I plugged in b for 5. I plugged in 5 for b, and 5 squared is 25. So in that way, I just went ahead and got my answer by plugging in my variables. Now, again, I can check it by foiling if I'd rather do that. And actually, let me move this real quick. I want to rewrite. So that's like having 2x plus 5 times 2x plus 5. I can FOIL it. 2x times 2x is 4x squared. 2x times 5 is 10x. 5 times 2x is 10x. 5 times 5 is 25. Combine my terms. That's 20x. So I have 4x plus 20x plus 25. So if I use my pattern, I ended up with that answer. If I FOILed it, I ended up with the same answer. So this is a shortcut method if you learn the patterns. If you don't learn the patterns, it's going to be more confusing. Okay? So if you learn the patterns, it's a shortcut. But if you don't, then just use FOIL. Okay? So let's look at the next one. Let me erase some of this so we can see my next problem.
Wait, so how come the 20x isn't 4x times 10?
Okay, because if we look right here, when we did 2ab, the 2 came from my formula, so that has to stay the same. Let me, hold on a second. So do you see how when I do 2 times AB, I have to have that 2. Then I plugged in 2x for A, and B is 5. So 2 times 2x is 4x, and 4x times 5 is 20x.
Okay, yeah, I get that now.
Okay, cool. All right, so let's look at this next one. Get some of this erased real quick. All right. So now let's take a look at this one. They told us that our pattern for x minus 3 squared, notice over here, when I have a negative sign, my pattern is going to be a squared minus 2ab plus b squared. This is my pattern I'm using. Remember, this is A, this is B. Is B 3 or is B negative 3? B is going to be -3. So we've got to be super careful. Remember, I like to put my things around parentheses to make sure I pay attention to my signs. So again, here I have x squared minus 2 times x times -3 plus -3 squared. A squared minus 2ab plus b squared. Plug it in each of my values. So I have x squared. -2 times x is -2x, but -2 times -3 is a positive 6x. And then a -3 times a -3 is a positive 9. So I end up with x squared plus 6x.
Should the -9 be squared or no?
So it is -3 squared. So -3 is what was squared. But hold on just a second, because let me figure out why. I should have a -2. What are you chewing on? At -2ab, I should end up with a -6x, and I'm trying to figure out why. Let's look at foiling it and see if I can figure out. Because by plugging it into the formula and paying attention to that -3, so I have x minus 3 times x minus 3. X times x is x squared. X times -3 is -3x. -3 times x is squared minus 6x plus 9. But when I plug it in, why is that a problem? Oh, because I'm not supposed to pay attention to my signs in this one. That was where, so I'm just using b is 3. Okay, that's why. So even though, so in this situation, I don't need that to be a negative. So that's what happened. B is just the number 3. So when I plug it in right here, I've got -2 times x times 3. So that would give me a -6x. And then 3 squared is 9. So I have plus 9. Okay, so when you're doing these, it is not necessary to take that minus sign into account. Y'all know I'm a very visual person. The patterns are not my thing. I foil it every single time just to be careful, okay? So it depends on if you're a mental math person or if you're a more visual, tactile learner. Everybody learns differently. Everybody remembers things differently. Use what works for you, okay? Like I said, it's the kind of thing where I'm not a pattern person. I'd much rather foil it and make sure I got it right. Okay, so now we're going to look at the next one. 2x minus 1 squared. Again, we're using the same a squared minus 2ab plus b squared, where a is 2x and b is just 1. I'm not paying attention to that sign right there. So I plug it in, and I'm going to have, if a is 2x, I have 2x squared minus 2 times a is 2x, b is 1, plus b is 1, so that's 1 squared. 2x squared. Remember, that's like saying 2 squared and x squared. All right, 2x squared is going to be 4x squared. Negative 2 times 2x times 1 is going to be negative 4x. And 1 squared is 1, so plus 1. So I'm going to have 4x squared minus 4x plus 1. Again, I can check it by foiling if I want to. I can come over here and say 2x minus 1 times 2x minus 1. 2x times 2x is 4x squared. 2x times a negative 1 is negative 2x. Negative 1 times 2x is negative 2x. And negative 1 times negative 1 is a positive 1. Combine my like terms, I have negative 4x. So again, I end up with 4x squared minus 4x plus 1. You can use the pattern and plug it in, or you can FOIL it. So for those, like I said, I typically FOIL it. Now the next two are much easier to deal with. Because remember we said if one is positive and one is negative, my middle terms cancel out. So that just means I'm going to take, so when I have the exact same numbers, x and 4, but one is plus and one is minus, I know that this is going to be a squared minus b squared is going to be my solution. If a is x and b is 4, then I just end up with x squared minus 16. Because a was x and I square it, minus b is 4 and I square it. So that one is a much faster, easier pattern to follow. Whereas again, if I were to FOIL it, and I have x times x, x squared. X times negative 4, negative 4x. Positive 4 times x is 4x. Negative 4 times positive 4 is negative 16. My like terms here, a negative 4x plus 4x is 0. So it goes away, and all I'm left with is x squared minus 16. So instead of FOILing it, I can look at these and say, I know my middle terms cancel. So I square my first term, square my second term. They're separated by a minus sign. So same thing here. A squared minus b squared. A squared is going to be 2x times 2x, which is 4x squared. Minus b is 3, and 3 squared is 9. If I need to, I can FOIL it. 2x times 2x, 4x squared. 2x times negative 3, negative 6x. 3 times 2x is a positive 6x, and 3 times negative 3, negative 9. These cancel out to be 0. So I end up with 4x minus 9. That is a pattern that I am much more able to see and much more efficient with than these patterns up here. Okay? Those confuse me some. I'd rather FOIL those. People that are really good at mental math, they like the patterns because it's faster and more efficient. That's great if you're able to keep your signs correct and you're able to do it. Fantastic. If you need to fall back on FOILing, that is just fine as well. Okay? All right. So let's go ahead. It is 12. So we're going to go ahead and get ready to wrap up. So what we will do is for our homework, I think the only thing that we will have for homework will be let's do activities 2 on page 141. So homework, page 141, activities 2, and then turn over to page 142, activities 3. Now turn over to page 142 and look at activities 3. It just says you're going to multiply, use formulas for special products when possible. If you'd rather FOIL them out, it doesn't matter, okay? But also notice I've got, here, I've got a binomial times a trinomial, so make sure you pay attention to multiplying. Same thing with these two, okay? Whatever method works for you is what you need to use. Oh, I lost the kings.
Miss Jen, will we be doing this on notebook paper or graph paper, or in the book?
Okay, this will be on notebook paper. Okay, so this will be a hand-in assignment. Everything that we've done so far has been in our book. So what I'll do is I'll make a note right here. This is homework, page 141, page activities 2, page 142, activities 3 on paper. Okay. Now, here's the deal. On Monday, you do not have to upload this right now. You're going to hang on to it. But on Monday, I might ask you to hold it up to your camera so I can see that you've done your work. You don't want to be the one not holding a work up to the camera, okay? So I will just say, hey, show me your work. Then we'll check it. That allows you to make corrections before you have to turn it in. My plan is that on Monday, I will have sent you a packet of extra practice that we're going to start working on next week. So you've got this homework right now. For Monday, you'll need to have this complete. You'll need to have the packet printed out that I send to you. And then after winter break, we'll turn everything in. We'll hand everything in when we get back to the co-op. Chad?
Can we, on activities 3, can we do the problems like we did on lesson 63?
Absolutely. If you want to foil them all out, if you want to do them however we've done them, that is fine. I just want you, the reason for this is for you to be able to practice and figure out your best method. That I want you to practice. If the formulas are not your thing, you don't have to use the formulas, the special patterns. If you'd rather foil it, foil it. If you need to, and especially when you're multiplying, especially a trinomial times a trinomial, then that's where you have to have your organized method. I'm just going to be looking I want to see your work, where you worked it, and I want to see your final answer. Okay. Then on Monday, when we check everything, if you missed it, you'll circle it and make your corrections. And then when we come back to the co-op the Monday after winter break, then you'll turn everything in. Okay. But by Monday, this work needs to be complete, and I may have you hold it up to your camera for me to see that you did your work. Okay, so don't come to class empty-handed on Monday. All right, everybody good with what they know what homework is? If you have not uploaded your test for the solving systems, go ahead and get that turned in this week. And I will see you guys on Monday. If you have questions between now and then, let me know.
What's the homework again?
Page 141, activities 2. And page 142, activities 3. Okay. All right. Y'all have a great weekend.